Good evening, everybody. I'm Al Huey, along with my co-host partner, Robert Eierman. Tonight, guess what? We're talking about water. Yep.
Whoa. I thought you said we were going to talk about the next president of the United States.
No, that was just a joke.
Oh, okay.
Next week, maybe.
Okay.
Next week.
Maybe we'll have a good guest.
Well, I'm trying to see if I can get Cruz to come on, but he won't come on.
All right.
All right. We're talking about water. Our special guest and returning here again on Ridgecrest Talk is Mr. Bill Manofsky. Thanks for coming
Thank you
out
for having
tonight.
me.
Thank you, Bill.
We appreciate it.
We
Glad to
very
be
much
here.
appreciate it.
Bill's been heavily involved in the water issue. And again, your title position, I'm sorry, I've forgotten.
I'm the National Vice President of Legislative Affairs for the Association of the United States Navy. I need to clarify that I do not represent the Navy at China Lake. Our organization is based out of Alexandria, Virginia, and we work with Congress on the benefit of the Navy.
Okay. So
On a number of topics
other
just
than water.
Yeah.
Water's
Well,
just
not
one.
just water. Water is part of our legislative agenda now. Water and natural resources for the entire Navy.
Okay. And as many of you know, we're in the midst of creating the local GSA, which is moving a little slow because there's some problem with these joint powers agreements that they're trying to create right now. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that tonight, but I do, down the road, want to cover that topic. I think it's only fair that we get some information out to the public on that, and we're going to try to see if we can get Supervisor Gleason to come in, but he's been kind of busy of late. As you know, he was recently elected as the chair of the Board of Supervisors. So, but we're going to try to see if we can get him on. So, what's the latest coming from your position and what you've seen and who you've talked to and what feedback you're getting?
Yeah, we've been pretty busy. One of the latest things I've been doing is I am furthering my connection to Senator Feinstein's staff to try to find vehicles for getting money for not only the Navy but the Department of Defense in the Eastern Sierra to drill for water and new water sources. I still think that's the best solution for the DoD mission, not just the Navy mission out here.
So, what makes you think that they would consider that? I mean, everybody's saying that we don't have any water. We're running out of water.
The information that I'm going to take to them is, let's back up a little bit. About 2 years ago, I started looking at both sides of this issue. And in talking to the farmers, I realized they're the experts at drilling wells in the Indian Wells Valley. They know how to drill, they know what's down there. Yet I also noticed that their voices were not being heard. So I am on a quest for the correct information. Recently I was talking to the farmers about the deep ag wells.
Explain.
It started with well 36 out West Ridgecrest Boulevard, and then also the deep ag wells up Brown Road. And I kept coming back to all these statements that I hear, particularly from the private well owners, of the decline of the water levels being 1 foot a year or more. And that's all I hear. And I hear buzzwords like overdraft, critical overdraft, and now GSA. And I'm peeling this onion back. And first of all, I'll use well 36 as an example. I got all this great data, 4,300 gallons per minute with only a drawdown of 17 feet. The well was being developed for 2 years, a lot of great data out of it. In that 2-year period, it was only showing a 6-inch drop every year, okay? And it struck me that there was still something missing. You have a 1,000-foot well.
6-inch drop a year, but what was the water level?
And that's what that's the question I forgot to ask. And the question was, what's the static water level? The static water level in that well is a little over 280 feet. It's a 1,000-foot well. 1,000 feet, minus 280 is 720. Do the math. It drops 6 inches a year, 720 feet times 2, 1,440 years worth of water.
Oh, that's not possible, folks. 1,400 years of water? During this whole debate, they made us believe that, you know, if we didn't do something ASAP in a matter of years, we're talking 3 to 5 years, we were going to be completely out of water.
That's right. Turn on the spigot, nothing will come out.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you see out of somebody who drills a well to 300 feet. All right? And his pipes are clogging up because it's only a 6-inch casing. He's showing a decline of a foot a year. He's got 50 feet left, so he's got 50 years left, and he panics and blames the farmer next to him for the problem.
Right.
Right.
The reality is all of the deep ag wells are showing hundreds of years of water in them.
And I need to add, because I've heard many times they say, well, yes, but when you get down there and start drawing on that deep water, it's no good. It's brackish. It's dissolved solids are way too high, and et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to make sure that we got in here that the water in these wells was tested, especially in well 36.
Well 36 showed potable water.
All the way down to 1,000 feet.
And that's right in the middle of the bullseye.
Right.
Right in the middle of the inverted cone in the intermediate well field between here and Eierman. What's the problem?
I have no idea.
So that to me, it gets back to what I've been saying. We need to look really close at these deep ag wells as the reason to then drill more exploratory deep wells to see what the water table really is, because it gets back to, yes, we're in overdraft. I had a discussion this morning with my contact at DWR down in Glendale, and I brought up this issue of overdraft.
Well, before you get into that, we're going to have to take a short break. Keep that thought.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we'll talk about what the discussion you had with him.
That and where we'll go for new water.
Right.
Besides, we aren't depleted with the old water, but let's find some new water.
All right, folks, we're going to take a short break here. Join us on the other side. We'll continue to talk with Mr. Manofsky about water.
Good evening again. Welcome back to segment 2 of Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Robert Eierman, along with co-host Al Huey, and we have Mr. Bill Manofsky, and we're talking about water. And we were just going to...
He was talking about a guy from DWR that you had a discussion
overdraft
with.
So I called DWR this morning with this epiphany I had about how deep the bucket is. And we got into discussion of overdraft and critical overdraft. And he basically said overdraft is any basin where you're drawing out more than is coming back in. I go, no matter what the depth of the water level is. And he said, exactly. I go, so my interpretation is it's a vague term. It's like saying Lake Tahoe is an overdraft if it's going down a foot a year. Lake Tahoe is over 1,000 feet deep. But, you know, it's in overdraft. So what is missing is what is the actual level of the water table and how much water is there, and the best way to express it is the data from the deep ag wells and any additional wells. And this is what I'm going to take to Feinstein. I'm going to get this data. I'm going to say, hey, this is the reason why we need to drill to the south and hopefully up to the north to find out where this water is flowing through the basin, because I know it's not a closed basin either.
I was just going to say,
what's the direction of the flow?
Yes. When they drilled well 36 and they got down there and they were putting in the casing, the dang casing kept moving in one direction. That's because we're a closed basin and no water moves. So, but that's, yeah. It's not a closed basin. I agree with that.
This is a well that the Water District bought some time ago.
Yes.
That was previously drilled by a individual that was contemplating putting in a farm, I guess, or something.
Orchard.
Orchard.
It was
Anyway,
it was traded for land that Water District owned up by Brown Road. And
Yeah, that's how they got. That's how they got
But
it. Yes.
it's like a mile or so from where there's already like 3 wells that the district has.
Yes.
And guess what? Instead of the district piping it into their system a mile away, they're going to spend the money and drill a new well right near where those other 3 wells are. And actually, they will create more of a problem by this cone of depression, those 4 wells drawing in that immediate area there.
Well, you see, it was much too expensive to hook up to well 36 system. Yeah, well, no, I mean, come on. They wanted to go 40 miles to the west and then come back 40 miles to the east, and they couldn't go straight through because they couldn't get an easement, which is, and so they just didn't want to use that well.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but.
And I know why, because it has a lot of good data, and it would hurt their argument.
Oh,
If they take that well and all the data that they have on it and bring it into the system. Right now, that data is not really being counted.
You mean maybe they couldn't jury rig things and scare the people and therefore have nobody object when they raise the rates for no reason? Is that what you're saying?
Well, and you touch a nerve there, because I was accused of being on the payroll of Big Ag, and I want to refute that right here. The only skin that I have in this game is I'm a ratepayer, and I don't want to see my water bill go up. That's the last thing I want to see,
Unfortunately,
let alone
I got
fees.
a surprise for you.
Well, think about all of the retired people out here on fixed income
Yes.
who are not even paying attention to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I just encountered a lady on Facebook the other day who just realized her land was rezoned to a state. She was totally asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
And she goes, I can't really do anything on it now. I can't even farm on it anymore to make any money. And I'm like,
Where were you during the discussions? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Robert and I have run into this for years on local political issues.
You know, the oddest thing about this story and the history of it, there wouldn't even be any big pistachio farms in this valley. Mr. Rod,
Stefan.
yes, only purchased that land because the Indian Wells Valley Water District refused to. And they were offered that land at such a price, it was essentially $1 million ballpark, virtually nothing down, and it has 2 wells on it, Big Ag wells, that the cost to replace those wells would have been twice what they were paying for the entire thing. Mm-hmm. Well, when the Indian Wells Valley Water District would not purchase the land to keep the farmers out, Rod bought it and came in. So it's their own fault.
Yeah.
Well, several factors here too. As I've been told, the county encouraged ag to come here in the first place.
Begged, not only encouraged, they begged them to come here.
And the value of that property will increase, the property tax revenue will increase as the trees mature. So back to the Navy, I as a former naval officer, have served on multiple bases, and it is to the benefit of a military base to have a vibrant community and an economy outside that base. Otherwise, people don't want to move there. Okay?
Absolutely correct,
And
yes.
you can't pick and choose who comes. Okay, I've heard Big Ag being called a carpetbagger. Well, so is Home Depot then a carpetbagger. So is Super Walmart a carpetbagger.
Yes.
All right, and so, and oh, by the way, the people who would want to invest more money into a local economy are those big money people who had already possibly invested. So there's a potential that all of these people with a lot of money coming in, putting in pistachio orchards, may get comfortable with the area and may want to invest further in the region. But no, we kick them in the teeth.
Yeah, and in fact, they were encouraged. They said, pick a good desert crop like pistachios and don't do, that would be much better than doing alfalfa or other things. So please come to our valley
Yes.
and put in pistachio orchard.
And it turns out that the data shows that we're essentially the Napa Valley for pistachios in the United States.
Yes.
We have the highest yield pistachio trees anywhere in the country. And people want to get rid of that? That's a blessing.
Of course it is.
Okay, and then the other
I
thing
hate
too.
to cut you off again, but we got to
But,
do it.
So
Got to pay the bills. So join us on the other side of the break here, folks, and we'll continue the discussion with Mr. Manofsky on water. Welcome back to Ridgecrest Talk. We're here talking with Mr. Manofsky about water. Okay, we got about 7.5 minutes here. Kind of wrap up your update on what's been going on and where you think this might be heading. You and I had a discussion earlier about there are some positive signs as we look out there.
What I'm hoping is that KZGN is going to do another reassessment. And I'm hoping that the only reason why we have a GSA in place is we were designated medium priority, and we just barely made that. And
With some misinformation.
yes, with some misinformation.
It was only off by 6.5 times. Come on.
That
Close.
we're refining that information right now, and what I'm hoping that DWR will maybe take another look. So that's something to look at down the future. I'd like to see the GSA go away. Right now, it was very disappointing to walk into that first meeting and just see a bunch of attorneys in the room arguing with each other. That's not good for anybody. When in reality, the money for all those attorneys, and I'll say it again, needs to go into drilling exploratory wells.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Wouldn't
what
that
I'm going
be
to try to
sweet?
work
Yeah.
on with Senator Feinstein's office.
But again, there's already enough data out there if they just look at it.
Well, that's what I'm saying about these deep ag wells. I think everybody, we need to find out all the standing water levels, the static water levels on all the deep ag wells to see how many hundreds of years of water are left in each one. That would be a good thing to know.
Right.
That might deflate this critical overdraft issue, and also then use that information to go for me and other people to go back to DC and try to get money from Congress for exploratory wells, either from DOD or the Department of Agriculture. And I'm looking at not only doing it in the Indian Wells Basin, but also Fort Irwin, Edwards Air Force Base, 29 Palms, as a DOD effort, okay? Because the current legislation in Congress is only addressing problems in the Central Valley and really nothing over here.
So when might this study happen?
Don't know. This is just coming up right now.
I wanted to get back for just a second on new water. I know that there are people, water experts, not certified, but the people who know where the water is and have successfully drilled ag wells. They say that, and I may not have the terminology here right, but there's a fold in the basin, and there is basically a wall, and on the other side of that wall is where they feel they can find new water.
I haven't heard that per se, other than if you look at well 36, the water flow, the casing got pushed to the southeast, so the flow of water is from the northwest.
Right.
We need to follow the line in both directions.
Well, I've talked to people who would practically bet their retirement on if we go a little bit to the south and to the west, I think. I could be wrong there. But anyway, they feel that they can drill a well and hit absolutely new water to this valley.
Well, DWR has already presented that information when they came here last. If you look at the area between Red Rock Canyon and the Walker Pass, 178 area, that is an area of water recharge. So we need to drill down there. And oh, by the way, that's above us right now. So any wells there, water would flow by gravity down to us. I don't think it would cost anything to get that water here. It's just some people don't want to talk about it to the point where people try to actually push that area off onto the valley to the south of us, who then turned around and said, hey, we really don't need to worry about that right now.
Well, this whole water issue is very, very, I won't say complicated, but you got to stay on top of it. I mean,
I'm trying to simplify it by looking for simple things like, how deep is the bucket? No one's ever brought that up.
Yeah, and it's not only complicated, you have this massive political ball that is rolling.
That's the problem.
And it simply crushes anybody who stands up and waves and says, wait a minute, you got your facts wrong. Yeah, they just roll over them and crush them.
Like the Chinese student in the mall out there with the tank coming towards them.
Shake their finger at him and say, now. You don't want to say things like that.
Yeah.
I think there is just a very, I mean, it's obvious now, there's this giant anti-ag contingent, and I don't know why they are so against it, other than they just don't understand basic business principles of trying to establish new markets in a region.
Well, again, about the GSAs, why in the heck are they leaving out the biggest water user for this GSA?
Which, by the way, the biggest water user is using less water today than they were 15 years ago.
Right.
So
they even committed in writing in essentially a mediation attempt to say we're only going to use so much water. They had a number. Nobody wanted to listen to it.
No, and the Todd report
then grossly overstated it
by 6.5 times.
Yeah.
Maybe 7 times.
And then Robert and I talked to one of them early on in this process that said, hey, I'm willing to spend my money to go find more water for the valley.
Yeah.
You know? And he had some ideas of where there might be more water too. But
they don't want to listen.
They don't want to talk to him.
No, and they don't want to listen to any of that. They just want to say, there's a problem, we're the government, we're the powerful water district, and we'll solve it for you.
We're here to help you.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're the government, and we're here to help.
You betcha.
Whenever you hear that,
run. Run fast.
Well, Bill, it's good to have you here again.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you'll come back again and keep us updated on what's going on. We appreciate that.
I will.
I know that you've got some meetings coming up in the next month and a half or so, so we hope that you'll come back and share with us again.
Yeah, I'm headed to Washington, D.C. in March.
And if you get word of any of elected officials from D.C. coming, give us a heads up. We'd like to talk to them also.
Certainly.
All right, folks, we're done for tonight.
Are we?
I think so.
We got 30 seconds.
Yeah. Not much time left.
Well, maybe we can talk about the next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Who?
My prediction
prediction
from 4 months ago.
I got to take you back
5
to the
months
home
ago.
right after we get
We're
off the
remake it. The next president, Donald J. Trump.
No comment.
All right, folks,
you don't have to.
Join us next week. We'll have another edition of Ridgecrest Talk with myself and Robert. Good night. Have a great evening.